Brothers and sisters in humanity, the world is not at peace, not because peace is impossible, but because we have forgotten where true war begins and where it truly ends. Recently, the air shuddered with the sound of steel upon steel, not on the ground beneath our feet, but in the skies above ancient lands. Rayleigh strikes upon Iran. And in the wake of these flames, a Russian general's voice rose, declaring, World War Roman III has already begun. Yet I ask you, what is a war? Is it only the missiles, the tanks, the shattered buildings? Or is it something much deeper, much older? Let us pause, close your eyes not to hide, but to see clearly. There is a war that starts not with the fire of weapons, but with the fire of hatred. It is lit not by soldiers, but by minds filled with division. This war begins long before the news cameras arrive. It begins in the quiet rooms where decisions are made for profit, pride, or power. Yes, perhaps this world war has begun. But the real war, the most dangerous war, has always been the one inside ourselves, the war between wisdom and impulse, between compassion and vengeance, between truth and convenience. You see, when one part of the world strikes, the other part bleeds. This is not politics, this is not strategy, this is the law of nature. We are all connected. What you do to your neighbor, you do to yourself. What you send out into the world will always return. If a general says the war has begun, I ask, has our awakening begun? Have our hearts begun to see clearly? Or are we still asleep, waiting for the final explosion to wake us? Stillness, breathe. The strongest warriors are not those who destroy cities. The strongest are those who can stand still while the winds of hatred blow and not be moved, who can see a burning world and choose to carry water, not more fire. Our ancestors fought with swords and shields. Today, we fight with narratives, with alliances, with fear cloaked in patriotism, but the warrior spirit remains. It is not about fighting others, it is about conquering the self. Ask yourself, what kind of warrior will I be in this world war? Will I spread division with my words, or will I plant seeds of peace with my actions? Because make no mistake, each one of us is on the battlefield, not with bombs, not with borders, but with how we treat each other, with how we think, with how we choose. In this moment, the world does not need more declarations of war. It needs declarations of awareness, of clarity, of unity. When others shout, be the silence. When others destroy, be the rebuild. When others fear, be the calm. Remember this. The war outside can never be won if the war inside is lost. Stand, still, strong, like the mountain that does not tremble beneath the storm. And maybe then this war, this Third World War, will not end with another world buried in ashes, but with a world finally awakened from within. The battlefield of the future is no longer distant. It begins in the decisions we make today, in silence, in spirit, and in awareness. These words are not a warning. They are a mirror reflecting the true nature of the conflict humanity now faces. Gone are the days when wars were fought only across borders with armies and weapons. The modern battlefield is far more subtle, far more dangerous, and far more pervasive. It lies within the unseen spaces within our minds, our intentions, our beliefs, and our choices. Every action we take, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, becomes a stone cast into the great ocean of time. Ripples form, waves grow, decisions echo. When we speak a word born of anger, we contribute to the storm. When we act out of fear, we feed the fire that consumes understanding. And when we remain blind to the suffering of others, we build the walls that divide nations. These are not merely moral choices. These are acts of warfare, subtle, spiritual, and deeply consequential. The true war of the future will not be announced. It will not wait for declarations. It will unfold quietly in the homes of the unaware and in the thoughts of the distracted. It will be carried forward not by missiles, but by misinformation, not by tanks, but by indifference, not by invasions, but by the erosion of empathy. We must see this now before it is too late, before the battlefield has fully shifted from the land outside to the soul within. Silence becomes the first line of this war, not the silence of apathy, but the silence of presence. In a world addicted to noise, to constant opinion, to endless reaction, silence is resistance. It is in silence that we meet ourselves, and it is in that stillness that we begin to understand whether we are moving from truth or from impulse. In silence, we learn whether our decisions are driven by clarity or chaos. And so, the first act of a future warrior is not to attack, but to be still. To listen deeply, to choose mindfully. Spirit is the next front. The spirit is where intention is born. It is where one either bows to fear or rises in wisdom. If we allow our spirit to be corrupted by hatred, by nationalism without compassion, by identity without humility, then we are already engaged in a war we cannot win. For a broken spirit cannot build peace. It can only replicate the violence it carries. To protect our spirit means to guard it against the poisons of this age, against the propaganda that demonizes others, against the rhetoric that makes enemies out of fellow human beings. A strong spirit seeks not dominance, but balance, not vengeance, but healing. Awareness, then, is the weapon of the awakened. To be aware is to see not only what is happening, but also why it is happening. It is to notice the manipulation behind the headlines, the agendas hidden within public speeches, the quiet exploitation that wears a mask of virtue. Awareness sharpens our vision until we no longer react to the surface of events, but understand their roots. With awareness, we no longer become pawns in the games of the powerful. We reclaim our ability to think clearly, to feel fully, and to act justly. And so, decision by decision, moment by moment, we shape the battlefield of the future. When we choose compassion over conflict, we disarm a future weapon. When we forgive rather than retaliate, we build a bridge where others would dig a trench. When we seek truth instead of comfort, we light a torch in the gathering darkness. These choices may seem small now, but they are not. They are sacred. They are decisive. They are the true turning points in a war that will never be won by armies, only by individuals who have chosen to awaken. The future is not some far-off destination. It is here. It is being built by your thoughts, your words, your daily rituals. It is rising with every meal you share in peace and every act of kindness you offer without expectation. The question is no longer whether war is coming. The question is, what side of this silent, spiritual war will you stand on? Because you are already on the battlefield. What shakes the world is not the war outside, but the war within each individual to rise above fear, revenge, and blind obedience. This truth lies at the heart of our times. In a world spiraling into deeper divisions, louder conflicts, and more dangerous rhetoric, it is easy to believe that the greatest threats are those on the outside, missiles launched, territories invaded, governments in collapse. But if we look closely with a still mind and a steady heart, we will realize that the real war, the one that determines the shape of the future, is happening in a quieter space within us. The world burns not only because leaders choose aggression, but because people consent to it. The chaos continues not only because weapons are manufactured, but because minds are conditioned to accept war as inevitable. Nations clash because their citizens have long forgotten how to think beyond borders, beyond beliefs, beyond history soaked in blood. And so, the struggle we face is not only on the physical battlefield. It is a deeper, more intimate conflict, the internal confrontation with fear that paralyzes, revenge that poisons and blinds, obedience that silences the soul. Fear makes us retreat into tribalism. It causes us to mistrust, to judge, to dehumanize. It keeps us silent when our voice is needed most. Revenge seduces us with the illusion of justice, but only leaves behind bitterness and broken generations. And blind obedience, that is the most subtle enemy. It masks itself as loyalty, as patriotism, as duty, but it robs us of our ability to question, to discern, to stand for truth even when it is inconvenient. To rise above these forces is the true work of a warrior, not one who carries a gun, but one who carries clarity, compassion, and conviction. It takes more courage to break the cycle of hate than to join it. It takes more strength to walk the path of peace in a world trained for war. And it takes the deepest discipline to master the self, to remain unshaken while the world trembles. Each of us has this war within. Each of us hears the voices, fear whispering that we must protect only ourselves, revenge calling us to even the score, obedience tempting us to follow the crowd. But we also carry another voice, quiet but steady, the voice of wisdom, the voice that says, choose stillness, choose peace, choose to see beyond what they show you. In this era where chaos seems to reign and the shadows of world war begin to rise, the real resistance is not found in opposition, but in inner transformation. The individual who masters their own mind becomes a light in the dark. The person who chooses humanity over hatred becomes a refuge amidst destruction. So let the world do what it will. Let the storms come. But within you, let there be a calm that no general can declare war on. For in that calm, the seeds of a new world are planted, not one built on ashes, but one built on awareness. That is how peace begins, not with treaties but with truth, not with force but with freedom from fear.